So it's now time to tackle the headstock part of the guitar kit. Let me show you what I've come up with for the design of the cutout at the top. Okay, so for a long time I had a simple design of intersecting kind of circle shapes at the top there. I want to do a cutout. I don't really like the flat side. I don't particularly want to cut it exactly like a Gibson headstock, even less so an Epiphone one. And there's only so much room between the top two holes and the flat bit in here. So I don't have an awful lot of wood to play with. I know that I've always wanted to have some sort of floral pattern. So after taking the time, it actually took me a couple of hours to really settle on a design that I'm happy with. I finally decided on, I've played with both symmetrical and asymmetrical designs. I couldn't really find an asymmetrical design that really just spoke to me. So eventually I went back to my original idea of doing something a bit more floral, and to try and get sort of an idea of petals hidden behind other petals. So the idea is for me to cut all of the bit at the top there, and then sort of like these three petals here, just kind of recess them, like hand carve them, just to kind of make them stand out. Not remove too much wood, but sort of like do a bit of relief carving just to kind of give it a bit more depth, and hopefully that should look nice. This wood here, I think it's mahogany. It seems to be a lot softer than what I was expecting, so we'll have to see. Unfortunately, I'm not going to have much to play with in terms of carving. I can take those little bit of offcuts and see how it reacts to the chisel. I've never carved that wood before, and since that's all I've got, I don't really want to mess it up. But I'll just have to cut it out somehow. I haven't quite decided whether I'm going to do it by hand or whether I'm going to do it with the jigsaw. I don't have a bandsaw, so that's a bit of a bummer. But I might just take the time and cut it by hand, just so I've got as neat a cut as I can make it. So that'll be the next step. given that I don't know, my autofocus doesn't work the way it used to, which is probably a good thing. Given that I've never done this kind of routing with a really small carving bit on the Dremel, I'm actually quite pleased with this. It's it might require a little bit of persuasion to have the bit fit in there, but actually I think it's not a bad thing. The only thing I'm not too sure of is there's obviously going to be some gaps around the piece, which will need to be filled with sawdust, but I haven't kept any bits of sawdust, but I do have offcuts which I can gather sawdust from, so I'm not too worried about that. I just have to make sure, because some of those bits I need to do some test on it for staining. So I can use one bit for staining, I can collect some sawdust from another piece, and that should give me enough to sort of fill any gaps that will appear once the piece is glued in place. What I'm not sure of yet is whether I glue it in place now and then I do the stain, or do I stain it first and then glue the piece. The problem if I stain it now, it'll raise the grain and possibly kind of mess up the fit, so it might be a better idea to glue it now and then do the stain. It's the material is gold mother of pearl, so I don't think it's going to absorb any of the stain. It's a water-based stain anyway, so it's not like alcohol, which might have some other effects. Not that I know any of this chemistry, but not knowing what effect, again, I've got some offcuts that I can test the stain on and see what happens. In fact, I might just do that. So that will be what happens next. So I think I'm going to stop here for this portion of the project, for this video. I have now fitted in the inlay. It's all sanded down to, at the moment, sanded at 400, and I've done some tests and the stain doesn't actually, like I thought it would. It glides perfectly fine. In fact, it's really super smooth. I'm really happy with how this turned out. So I'm going to, the next stage of this project is going to be staining the whole neck. I think I also need to level the frets a little bit. They're not perfect, but I have a fret leveling beam which I think I'm just gonna run through. I also need to condition the thread. So I've got some thread conditioner I can put on there, but the next stage definitely going to be staining the neck. So I have some green. I have done a really quick test. This is only like one layer, so this isn't really indicative of necessarily how it's going to look like. I think I might run a couple more just to see how dark I can get on that mahogany, but I think that should look okay. The rest of the body is going to be green, so I think this would look best. I might do a test with the black, see what that looks like, but green body, black headstock, I'm not so sold on this. So that's it. Hope you learned something, and I hope everyone is safe, and I will see you in the next stage of this project.